Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Quranic Lessons for the Infidel. With me, as usual, is Saeed and Buraz. And guys, I would like to know from both of you before we begin, what is your, if you have a relevant background in this area or relevant motivation, why are we talking about the Quran today? What is in it for you? Saeed, you want to start?
Yes, well, people usually ask me when you already left religion, why are you talking about it? Why you don't go and live like your normal life? Now you can do whatever you want. But well, that's not a point. That's what I say. An example, I know that there are many dishonest apologists. An example, who lie, and I know that they lie. So an example, some people find difficult to leave religion because they are heavily indoctrinated. They are always afraid, an example of hellfire. What if they are wrong and something like that? And I want to help them. I want to help them literally to to win over their fears. That's
That,
what is my motivation, I would say.
yeah, I can certainly respect that, and I'm there with you. Bogey, what is your background?
Well, I deconverted from two religions because I come from a mixed background. Uh, my mother is a Catholic and my father is a Muslim, and they both tried to get me to their religion, and I rejected both of them on the basis of they're not true and they're actually bullshit. And that was my departure from religious scene as it goes. I was 14 when I finally rejected Islam. I never had a knack for Christianity to start with. It was very bullshit from the very beginning.
Okay,
um,
good.
and I basically floated like that from the age of 14 to almost 40 until I basically realized that no, I'm be an atheist and I'll be doing atheist stuff because religious is harmful and it influences people's lives negatively and badly. And I think it should be curtailed heavily
Absolutely, yes.
because it's not doing any good to anybody on the face of the planet. So,
Yeah, and it has been brought up before, that this or that church or whatever, that there'll be some religious group that does some beneficial thing, usually as a PR stunt, and that's it. That's all they've got is they like, well, they do this one bake sale, or they do this one thing where they like make soup for the homeless while preaching to anybody that has to eat while they're eating. They have to listen to being preached at, and that is like the most positive thing that this religious organization does. And then everything else they do is just overtly anti-humanitarian or corrupt or evil in some cases. So anyway, getting back to today, we're talking about surahs 101, 75, 104, and 77. And I know, Bogey, you have notes to go through on this, and I'm going to let you take it away. Go ahead.
okay, well, unless Said, you want us to add something to it, I will start with my notes.
No problem. Go first.
Okay. So this is our Surah 101, and it brings the concept of the scales to the judgment day. It's an interesting concept that your deeds and your belief are weighed in a scale. And since you've done so well with the surahs today, Aaron, I will not particularly correct anything because you weren't wrong anywhere, which is great. I think you're making that progress. And I specifically like your struggles that you had uh, with some of these surahs, especially the long one. Um, I like how you struggled with it. I like how you wrestled with the stuff in it. And I actually appreciate that you did that. Um, so 101 brings the notion of the scale. But let's go for the first verse here for a second. Al Qari'ah. Again, you went with the calamity, with the striking calamity, which is fine. It's a good translation, but again, we are back to the concept of this is just a name for the end of days. Like this is just a title for the end of days. There are several names, just like there are numerous names for fires in Islam. So you don't just go to hell, you go to a specific hell. There's an address there that you go to. Right? It's not like just hell. Yeah. Um, there are names for the end days, and one of the things about the Islamic belief is that God, Allah, has 99 names. Allah happens to be one of them. And when we figure out his 100th name, that's when the end day happens.
Okay, that wasn't in these surahs.
No, it's not in the source. I'm just throwing this out as a trivia. Like
Okay.
he's got 99 names, and we can check those out. I can bring links towards that. And when we figure out the 100th name, that's when we say, what is it called? You say something backwards, and then something happens.
What this reminds me of is that there was a story in Hebrew tradition that Adam's first wife was actually Lilith, and that Eve was made after Lilith fled the sacred garden. And the way that she was able to do that was that she knew God's real name, and that gave her the power of flight.
Okay, okay.
There is,
Lilith,
by the way, there is something similar in Islam. I
yeah.
remember, like, if you there was one name that God in particular really liked, and I believe it was the story of David, Prophet David, and that I think that he knew that name, and he when you call him with that name, he won't ever reject your request. Something about that. I can't remember well, but something about these lines. Are you familiar with that, Buraz?
I think I read about it. I'm not sure. It's not in my foreground for sure. But yeah, Lilith is a badass. I like Lilith a lot. I she's super badass. So let's see what the notes say here. So you weigh down your scale with good deeds, and if you don't have enough good deeds, then your scale would be light.
And
And
this seems to be stolen from, what is it, Egyptian mythology?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that's exactly where it is from. The scale, the weight of the heart of the dead, right? How heavy it is. If it's heavy, then it's good. If it's not heavy, then he's not good. Lacking belief and good deeds. Now, to add to that hook, good deeds do not help if you don't have belief here. So you're going to hell. And the other thing that I wanted to point out here, which does have something to add to what you did, is verse number 9. When your weights come up lacking and you're going to hell, right?
Mm-hmm.
First, it says, verse number 9, and their mother is a fallen woman. You can bleep this out if you want.
No, I'm just looking for that.
Verse 9.
What it will have the bottomless pit for his home.
So, no, verse 9, for Ummahu Hawiya, and their mother is a fallen woman. I could use another word for that.
Is that in Surah 101?
Yeah.
I'm trying to figure out.
It says something else. It says we'll have the bottomless pit for his home.
Yep.
As far as I know.
Yep, that's what
Or
I
his
got.
refugee will be an abyss, whatever that means, and he will have his home in Hawiya, in hell.
Yeah, that translation is out to lunch. That translation is out to lunch. Anyways, that's funny. I figured I add it in there. It's just out of nowhere in the middle of the desert. Somebody calls somebody's mother off. And guess what? They're going to hell. but I guess you figured that out by now.
Yeah, it's about the only thing the Quran says.
Yep.
Yeah.
You're going to hell in so many ways. Okay, we can move to 75 if there are no extra
Oh, yes,
notes.
please.
Said,
Yes,
you good?
yes, yes.
Okay, we go to 75. Let's talk about how does the resurrection at the day of judgment happens. And uh, this is point 3, verse 3 starts with,
But by the way, we have God swearing once again.
oh yeah, exactly, you're right. He swears by the self-incriminating soul.
Yeah,
Okay, it's an interesting concept that not many languages carry this, but when you feel guilty about doing something, there are some languages that I know that will give you this your soul incriminates, so yourself incriminating yourself. You feel guilty on your own, and there's a word for that in these languages. Not every language has it. I don't think English does, but I know Hungarian does, and Arabic. Verse number 3 is interesting in the sense you didn't get it wrong. Everything is fine in your understanding. I'm just going to add a little bit of color to it.
Okay.
Islam's resurrection and end of day and the going through the judgment and then to heaven or hell is a reconstructive system. Okay, so verse number 3 alludes to that. Does humans not think that we will recollect their bones? So on the last day, when the mountains are fluffed up and exploded, and the earth is and the sky is ripped apart, and all the stuff you got, when that happens, your bones will be collected from the grave, and you will be reconstructed. Flesh will be added, skin will be added. That turns out to be quite important. And then the soul will come back to you again, and that's how you go for the judgment. Okay, so it will be the physical you who stands in front of the scales to be weighted. Which one of the things that really, really, really broke Islam for me, because I go, that doesn't even work. Forget about God can do anything. You can't do it because it doesn't work. And we can get into that, why. And the other thing with 75, which is our new step forward in our learning about the Quran, and its ins and out, is verse number 16, which says, do not move your tongue quickly when you recite the Quran. These verses actually talk about how to recite the Quran so that you remember it properly. Okay?
Yeah, I know it's in here. I'm looking through my list to find that. How did and I'm not happening across it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, here we go. Yeah. Do not rush your tongue in an attempt to hasten your memorization of the revelation.
Yeah. This verse is abrogated. I know you alluded in your notes about the Quran said something different somewhere else. You're right. You're not wrong. But this is officially abrogated. And I think this is our first abrogated verse that we meet in our study of the Quran. So I figured this would be a nice occasion to introduce the abrogation list.
Yeah, I will. I put the link to the abrogation list in the video description.
Yes,
And
thank you.
For clarification, Bogey, what is an abrogation?
An abrogation is the Quran has a chronological order. That's what we're following in this study. And whatever the Quran said in an earlier verse and said something different in a later verse, then the later verse prevails and abrogates the earlier one. So the earlier one is invalid and the later verse is the valid verse.
The earlier one is invalid.
The earlier verse is invalid and is invalidated by the later verse.
Okay.
I just think that there is no point when you have to keep abrogated verses. I mean, it just doesn't make any sense to me.
Doesn't make any sense, and doesn't make any sense anywhere except that there is a verse in the Quran that says, we brought the Quran and we will keep it intact. And because of that verse, no Muslim was able to change anything. So they kept the invalidated verses in the Quran. They can't erase them. And they just added a list of abrogations, preferably to confuse everybody.
Yeah. How do people not realize that this is all the work of men?
Well, I watched, and I think it was Zakir Naik, how he justified that. He said an example when it comes to alcohol. So it first says don't consume alcohol when you have to pray. You have to, and then he said, just because Quran is indeed a revelation of God, and God, an example, knew that you cannot stop using alcohol at first, then you have and the same concept applies on an example non-Muslim who accepts Islam. So he has step by step to do something.
Yeah, and this really illustrates. That's a very good example. This really illustrates how Muslims understand abrogation and how it works. The later verses abrogate what's before them, right? We started with the earliest ones, and we're going towards the later ones. So now we have a verse. It's an earlier verse that says, "Do not move your tongue quickly to hasten with it." And let's see what abrogates it, because now we have the abrogation list. What abrogates it is Surah 87, verse 6. Don't have to step over there. I got it here on my screen. Verse 6 in Surah 87 actually says, سَنُقْرِئُكَ وَلَا تَنْسَى. We will make you read it so that you don't forget it. And that abrogates the previous one.
Okay, and are we done with, what was it, 75?
No, we're just jumping back to 75 to finish the notes.
Okay.
39. Allah only created the pair of males and females. Bad news for LGBTQ people. Sorry. Did not create you.
By the way, I read your blog post, and literally every time, an example when Quran says, for when they deny the truth, and then every time Aaron said, well, it's not true. Truth is what the facts are, and that's definitely not true. Quran example continuously repeat that you reject the truth, but indeed you cannot show that what is there is actually true. So,
well, thank you, Said.
Now we can go to 104 if we're done with 75.
Yes, please.
yeah.
Okay. We move on to 104, and I have no notes on 104. So
in my blog post, I had to put up references to Ghostbusters,
and I absolutely loved what you did with 104. I just going like, you aced this one, and I have no notes on it. I have nothing to add. You killed it. That's it.
Yeah.
Well, thank you.
I agree.
Well, so we move on to Surah 77 then.
Yes. I have
now,
nothing.
What is al-mursalat? Because in multiple translations, it has winds in brackets, so that you're supposed to understand that it's winds set forth, but it only actually says set forth. What is the Arabic al-mursalat?
I'm going to check.
I am going to say, my translation said it's winds.
Okay.
But it's a missive, if you want the precise name of what this word means. Whatever a missive is, it could be wind, it could be the messages of the previous prophets, which I think is the more likely explanation here.
Yeah, because the alternate translation is the emissaries.
Yeah, or right, but this is more salat, so it's not person. It's not a person, it's a missive,
Okay.
right? Because I'm trilingual, I get a grasp on languages like this. A mursala is actually the item that was sent. It's the missive. It's the package, right? It's not the messenger.
Yes, and the first verse explains that by the wind sent forth in swift succession.
And he
Violent
uses wind,
stormy.
and this uses wind again. So we're going to disagree to disagree.
Okay, so now
Although reading the second verse, فَالْعَاصِفَاتُ عَصْفًا وَالنَّاشِرَاتِ نشرًا, I will then side with Said's explanation that it's a wind.
yeah.
Because al-asifa is the blowing wind, is the storm wind, and munsharat is the scatter wind. You know, when the wind is kind of going in all directions and it's not like steady in one direction.
So let's just make sure I understand this surah properly. Does it say that the mountains will be blown away?
Yes, it does.
Yes, it does.
Yes, but before it does say that, it does فَإِذَا النُّجُومُ طُمِسَتْ. Right? You say obliterated. Not wrong. Not wrong. I would.
I wonder what does the verse "and the sky is torn apart" means. I mean, how is that possible? What does that even mean? I never understood such
If
verse.
you believe that there's a firmament that is a solid crystal
Makes
dome, the way it's described in the Bible, and
Then
in a number of other religions too. I mean, Persian and Oriental religions all describe this firmament idea. Then this is the thing that has windows in it to let the rain in, because the Earth is like a snow globe in the midst of an abyss. So there's water above the firmament, and it's like a solid glass air bubble that we live in.
Yes,
oh,
there is actually in the concept of there are seven skies, and there is above, as far as I remember, water, then kursi and arsh.
yeah, the word faraja in this case means split, and this word is used in many other specific places, and everywhere it means split.
Okay, so they are talking about the firmament. The only way that you can break the sky is if the sky is solid, and that's what they're talking about, the firmament. Then,
Right.
And the other thing is, and this is the thing that really got me, was that Muhammad is saying that this end of days is going to be when the sun and moon are joined together and the moon is dimmed, and so he is talking about a solar eclipse.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
You're not wrong. And Muslims have a special prayer for solar eclipses and lunar eclipses.
And Muhammad on one occasion said that solar or moon eclipse is a sign. I mean, if you know for what reason is there eclipse, then you will understand it's nothing special. What kind of sign that should be? But I once read, I think I mentioned it last time, in Tabari, in Tabari's book of history, there was some strange belief that around sun there is some kind of lake, and when God gives a sign to angels, they drop sun in that lake, and that's why we see eclipse. And I also read there that what he meant here is when sun and the moon join, like literally sun is going to eat the moon, like they in that sense. That's what I think it means, though it's not really that explicit, and we can't understand because we are not sure what he had in mind when it comes to the sun and moon itself.
How do Muslims deal with the fact that that there are solar eclipses that have happened again and again and again, and the world never ended, the mountains never got blown away?
But it could have. It could have, and that's why, to keep you on your tiptoes, it might have ended today and it didn't. This is to keep you on your tiptoes. This is to scare the bejesus out of you. I mean, the Muhammad out of you.
Okay, so what is the excuse? How do they are they just aware that eclipses happen, or
They
are
are
Well,
modern
aware that
Muslims
eclipses
expecting
happen.
something
they
else?
say they say it's something else. They say an example when sun eats something like moon. I haven't found like the real explanation, but
Okay.
they change it when they know that something is really wrong, then they must to change interpretation. They have to
Yeah,
say it means something else than what it actually says.
but this is what the cross says. This is actually what it says. And when somebody's trying to explain to you what happens to the sky, and no, this is not in the book, so it doesn't bear it out. Jibal Nusifat, I had a note on this one, specifically with the word Nasafa, which means blown up, like the Buddha statues,
Hmm.
just for illustration. It is used a little bit differently here, so your explanation is okay. But just the word has other meanings, which means up things. Uh, and the prophets are gathered together. We're talking about, the final day. So the prophets also are risen, um, except Jesus because he didn't die. We can go into that story some other day. Um,
Yeah, I can't wait till we get to that part.
yeah, that would be like absolutely precious. Um,
I am enjoying this process, by the way. Reading it with guidance is helpful. Reading with the reference to the multiple translations and to the tafsirs. I could never handle it the hadiths. That's why I need you guys. But at
yeah,
least you guys have given me reference to the tafsir, so I have some clue.
yeah.
Uh, I
Well,
still need you guys to explain to me what the traditions are because there's no way I can interpret that. But I really think this is probably the best way for a Westerner to read the Quran.
I hope so.
And I'm
So,
well, it may not be. Not the best way for a Western Muslim to read the Quran. I mean, I don't understand how anybody can read this and believe it. That's the problem I have.
so my other notes are verse 20. So 77 verse 20.
Okay.
Um, Humans are created from despicable fluid. Yuck. We already established about the semen stuff
Yeah.
the last time,
By the way,
but
I would just like to mention an example. Aaron, you mentioned like no life forms reproduce themselves from single cell. Well, Muslims can give you their apologetics and say that they believe that everything that happens. They say even I think it's in one hadith that says even a leaf don't fall from trees if Allah didn't will it. So everything happens with the will of God, and everything what happens is because God did it, literally.
Yeah, we talked about that so that even the things that you or I do or say, even the very fact whether we believe or not is determined by God. So we have absolutely no free will of our own.
Exactly. There is verse which says you cannot will except what Allah wills. So that's pretty much it. I would
That's
summarize it.
pretty explicit.
Yeah.
inshallah. Okay, so notes verse 20 is the despicable water. And verse 21, I think, is referencing the womb.
Yeah. Me
Yeah,
too.
yeah. Let's see. In the translation that I got, did we not make you from an underrated fluid, which we housed in safe lodging for a determined period?
You got a very, very PC translation there.
Yeah.
Yes. So the specific time rating. This is I'm elucidating this because you got to get this. It debates. The specific time is 9 months. The gestation. It happens in the womb. Da 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 da. And then they combine it with other verses from somewhere else. And then you get the debate yet you have seen with PZ Myers on the staircases of some conference.
Well, I
I
was
don't
with
think
him there.
I don't think they are going to use this ever again. like embryology as the subject of scientific
Hope
miracle.
not, but just in case they did, Aaron, you were standing on that debate.
Yep.
Yes.
I just wish I was closer and could hear. And I also wish that I had read the Quran before that conversation, because it would have been a much more lively discussion.
I think that Buraz, you weren't there uh, not last time, but before that, when we spoke, that there was Taimur, and you did you catch when Adnan Rashid lied? An example, it says uh, when P.T. Myers proved him wrong. An example, it says, and after that, and he said that these happen simultaneously, and then he says, well, that's even if that's the case, that's still what the Quran says, and I think that the word used in that instance was uh, I can't remember.
Yeah, I remember when you brought it up, and I knew what the word was then too, but I can't remember it either.
But as you know, what's the word for next or after?
Fumma.
Summa.
Yes, Summa. Right,
Yeah.
Okay.
right. So, and the best thing is that Quran, in that instance, does not use the word Summa. It uses the word Fa, which literally means next. And after that, I think that Hamza Tarsis also had a blog post, and he deleted it after that.
Yeah, I've seen Hamza drop an argument, because he brought up one against me, and he brought it up on the steps up that day, but I wasn't close enough to hear what he was talking about, where he goes on about how the mountains are used as
Yeah,
place setters to hold everything down, so that the
respect.
earth doesn't move. And then I had to explain to him that the mountains float on the lithosphere. They don't hold anything down. The kind of continents still move around them. And so he said, well, anything that he gets wrong is his own error. It cannot be the Quran's error.
Yes, that's what they say.
Yeah,
Yep.
but at least he stopped using that argument. All right.
Yes.
Do we
First
have any other notes to go over for this last one? Because I mean,
one,
the thing that got me about this last bit was that I'm just arguing. Essentially, I'm arguing with God in a blog post.
are you winning? Are you winning?
Well, yeah, it was very much like back in the day when we were doing like Usenet arguments, and we started, you keep the saved statement, and then you address every sentence and show how everything the guy said was wrong. And this time the blogger that I'm, or the other Usenet person is God, which was
Yeah,
amusing to me, and that God's arguments are this bad.
you have to correct him so often, man.
I haven't gotten many comments from, I think maybe one from a Muslim, maybe one. But most of the comments, most of the criticisms, what little there are, there've only been like a handful, and they seem to be Christians that are advocating for, why am I complaining about people want to believe what they want to believe? That's an attitude that I never understood. What, when they say, why can't we believe what we want to believe? Why does it have to be true before I believe it? And
Well,
that, to me, that's the cardinal rule. It has to be
yeah,
true before you believe it.
I
Why are
mean,
we even discussing this?
that's not even like what you're gonna. I mean, if you are just going to go and believe anything,
Yeah. And I
really,
have to ask believers, why would you want to believe something that isn't even true?
that yeah, why why would that be a good addition? Because beliefs inform actions,
Yeah.
right? Why would that be a good information of your actions when they're not true, right? If
Exactly.
you go and watch Cinderella and that informs your action, why is that a good? Well, at least Cinderella doesn't inform for bad actions, right? But let's go, we watch Sin City. Why should that inform your actions,
I'm
right?
I'm not following.
I mean, just I referenced two movies.
Yeah, I mean, I saw Cinderella. I hated the Wicked Stepmother. She's my favorite villain
Right.
of all time to hate. Man, I think it's because that woman reminded me of so many people when I was a child that I
Hmm.
actually knew in real life.
Yes.
It's just evil woman. And Sin City, I saw once. I watched the entire 3 hour thing for what ended up being 7 seconds of that girl at the end. I can't remember her name now. That was dancing with the chaps on. I watched the entire movie because they put that in the ad.
Yeah. I mean, why should fiction inform your actions? It shouldn't. You should base your actions on fact.
But everything that the Quran says at this point to the end of this surah is all through challenging those who deny the truth. And
Yeah.
the truth in every instance is just an empty assertion.
It
Right.
claims to be truth. Yes.
Yeah.
That's the standard claim. A funny note, verse 23 is actually Trumpism.
A Trumpism.
Trumpism.
Scrolling back up to 23.
Yeah.
All right. We determine it. How excellently we determine. That's my translation. How's yours?
We measured it out, and we are the best measurers.
Nobody measures as good
We're
as
the best measurers. We got the best people out there measuring.
All right. Well, we're gonna close it up here momentarily, guys. I want you to make your final comments, and then I'm gonna have to bug out.
That's all.
You're done?
Well, no, if you guys have something else to say, please do.
Okay, I have a bit of a note here about the torment of hell. And I know this is going to be parsed in more detail soon. But due to the nature of the reconstructive end of days in Islam, if you're assigned to hell, then you will go there with your own body, and that's the punishment for what you did, right? And then you're burned in hell, and obviously you're going to burn because flesh and blood burns in fire, right? And once you burn out and you turn into ashes again, you are reconstructed again and then put back in hell again, because your suffering cannot end by your demise. I just wanted to leave this on the table.
Yeah, so that's what I mentioned in the blog post, where people are, where their bones, their dried out bones are unearthed and, refused with sinew and everything, put back together and, revitalized. And there you are again, only to be judged and then tortured. And so you're disassembled, reassembled, disassembled forever.
Yeah.
Pointlessly.
When you're
God
not
is going to
learn,
God is going to replace your skin over and over and over again for eternity.
Yeah.
Yep. All because I didn't believe what some raving madman told me, who had no evidence that he knew anything.
Exactly.
Okay.
No
right,
matter.
well, I always invite other people. I've had a mailing list for people that I would like to come on and discuss this with us. I had one person comment on my Facebook that was trying to jibe me on this, and I even invited him. If somebody says something negative in my YouTube comments, I invited one or two people there, but they're not here. So the invitation is open. I will never be accused of being in an echo chamber. If you want to put in, if you'd like to contribute to these discussions the next time we do one, and that's not going to be until June now. I'm going to be in the UK for the rest of this month, and I don't know what my internet connection is going to be, or what my availability is going to be. So we'll have to suspend this until June. But come June, if you'd like to participate in one of these talks, give me an email or contact me beforehand. I'll put you in the mailing list. I'll be happy to have you on there, even if you don't agree with me. Everybody good with that?
Yep.
Okay. All right. Bogey, Saeed, once again, thank you very, very, very much for your input here. You really are helping me understand this. And this, I think, is the best way for a Westerner to learn the Quran. And I'm going to go ahead and close it out. Say goodbye, guys.
Goodbye.
Adios.